hurry, and I normally come out to the classrooms and teach for you, but today I've invited you into my kitchen and we're gonna make some sugar cookies. So this is kind of a fun, easy, they're beautiful, easy to do. You can do it with your children, you can do it by yourself. Everybody loves them. This is kind of what they look like. This is one of the little cookies that I'm gonna be doing today. Bunny, I've got a little carrot. You can use any cookie cutter that you might have to do this. So we're gonna start with a cookie dough. This is a great cookie dough. It's got a lot of butter in it, so it's gonna be really good. So the recipe is, it's gonna be on the website at the district. We'll put that up there for you to get. And it's going to be 2 cups of butter, 3 eggs, 2 cups of sugar, 1 teaspoon baking powder, 1 teaspoon almond, a teaspoon vanilla, and 6 cups of flour. It makes a large batch, but if you don't need it all, put some in the freezer. It freezes very well. You can divide it into 2 or 3 different groups, throw in the freezer, and have fresh cookies throughout the month or whenever you feel you want to cheer somebody up and make them a pretty cookie. So I have my dough here. You're going to roll your dough out with a little bit of flour. This is a softer dough. I normally don't refrigerate my dough, but if you want to refrigerate it, you can. It'll roll a little bit. It'll roll a little bit easier. But typically, I just make the dough and I use a little bit of flour underneath it, a little bit of flour on top of it, and I'll roll it out. Now this cookie dough, you're gonna roll it out much thicker than you normally do. A lot of times you roll cookies, sugar cookies, really thin, and they, it's just a lot of cookies. This here dough is meant to be a little bit of a thicker cookie. So you're gonna roll it out about 3/8 of an inch thick. Roll it out, and then you're going to use your cookie cutter and cut your cookies. When you cut cookies or fondant, as we're going to do later, when you push down your cookie, do the twist a little bit. When you do the twist, it's going to release that cookie, and you're going to get a nice clean cut. So do the twist when you do it. I've got lots of little cutters here. I've got a tulip. Sometimes the cookie dough is picked up with the cutter. Otherwise, you might have to pick it up. If it doesn't pick up, you might use a spatula to pick up the cookie. You're going to cook the cookies on parchment paper. So cut out your cookies, place them on the cookie sheet, and then you're going to bake them in an oven at 375 degrees. Leave them a little bit of room. These cookies will expand a little bit, not too bad, but they're going to expand a little bit. So cut out all your cookies. You're going to bake them in the oven. They're going to bake about 12 to 15 minutes. It just kind of depends on your oven, how many times you open it. The cookies are done when they look like this, okay? They're just a little bit brown on the outside edges. Don't overcook them. They shouldn't get too thick. Bake them on the parchment paper. When you're done with them, just slide the parchment paper right off of the cookie sheet, and there, let them dry that, let them cool that way. That way, if you have cookies like this one that might have breakage because it's got a narrow area where the carrot top comes on, if you start to move them off of a sheet with a spatula, a lot of times they'll break. So the way to not have that happen is just put them right on a parchment paper. That works by far the best. All right, so there we have our cookies. That's step number 1. So you can make them, you can even freeze them like this. Sometimes I bake a whole bunch of them, throw them in the freezer, and then when I need them, that's when I might come back and I will decorate them. Depends on what I need them for. All right, so I'm going to just get rid of this right now. And we're going to go to step number 2. And step number 2 is to make your fondant. Now, you don't have to make the fondant. If you want to, they sell it. You can buy it at Walmart, you can buy it at Michael's, you can buy it at Joann's. All these places have curbside pickup, so you can actually get a hold of it without even going out to the store if you don't want to. So you can buy the ready-made fondant. It comes in some colors, or you can buy the white and you can color it. Okay, I prefer to make my own. I love this fondant. It's called a marshmallow fondant, and it's going to be made with marshmallows. So a lot of you may have marshmallows at home. You can use them. So you're going to use a bag of marshmallows. You'll need a 16-ounce bag. If you don't have a 16-ounce bag, you can use a 10-ounce and add in to get to 16 ounces. So you need 16 ounces. I typically use a big bowl, even a bigger bowl than this sometimes, and I will throw my marshmallows, in the bag or in the bowl. So I'm going to put my marshmallows in the bowl, and then they'll go in the microwave. And I'm not going to go through a lot of this process. I'm going to just kind of walk you through it, so you know, in fact, even these aren't just falling out. Honestly, and I found that the store brand marshmallows actually have a little bit more volume to them than the Jet Puff. They all work, but if you're out shopping, the store brand works just fine. So you'll put your marshmallows in here, put them in the microwave on high for 2 minutes. Now, depending on your microwave, you may need a little bit more time, but 2 minutes is about it. So you're gonna melt them just like you'd be making Rice Krispie bars, okay? So melt your marshmallows, then you're going to stir them down into, they're gonna stir down into a soft form. And then you're gonna add in 3 tablespoons of water. Okay, so mix that in, and then I also add into it a flavoring, and that's kind of optional, but I always put a little bit of almond. So I put about 2 teaspoons of almond in my marshmallow, just kind of carries on. I'm sorry, I didn't tell you there's almond in the cookies. So there's also a teaspoon of almond and a teaspoon of vanilla in the cookie recipe. So anyway, so I'll put a little bit of almond in here. Then you're going to add in 2 pounds of powdered sugar. So you're going to take this and you're going to dump this in here and start to stir it. It's going to be kind of gooey and a little bit sticky. And at some point it's going to kind of come together almost like a bread dough. At that time, you can take it out of your bowl or continue to knead it in your bowl. Put some Crisco on your hands. So put a lot of Crisco on your hands so that it doesn't stick, and just kind of knead it. If it still seems too sticky, you can take it out of the bowl and knead it in a little bit more powdered sugar. This stuff should be about the consistency of a soft Play-Doh when you're done with it. You can take it then and you can color it. So I have some here now I've colored. So this is my done fondant. Your fondant needs to rest after you make it. So you're gonna make the fondant and then let it rest for at least 3-4 hours, because the marshmallows, remember, you melted them. So they have to go back to a solid state. And so they're gonna firm up a little bit. A lot of times I'll just make it the day before. This fondant will last about a week. You do not have to refrigerate it. I throw it in the freezer. So I use what I'm gonna use, and then if I have whatever's left over, I have my fondant, I just put it in small baggies and I throw it right in the freezer. So I'll take the small baggies, put them in a bigger baggie, zip it shut to make sure no air gets in there, and I'll throw them in the freezer. When they come out, they're just as good as when they went in. It's just same consistency. It works wonderful. So that's how you're gonna do it. To color your fondant, I typically use, this is what I like to do. I like to use this stuff called Color Right. It's small tubes of coloring, and this coloring is very intense, and it's also a gel, so it's not liquid, so it's not going to thin out your fondant. It's just going to keep it about the same consistency that it is. Also, any of those little pods of color that you might have at home will work. The stuff in the grocery store that's very, very thin and it's pretty much all water, you'll need to cut your water back a little bit to use them, or add a little bit more powdered sugar, because those will change the consistency of your fondant. So once you get your fondant back out after it's rested for a while and maybe you colored it, you're going to knead it a little bit, and you don't need to do a whole lot at a time. I'm just going to take a small ball of it and I'm going to knead it just like you would Play-Doh, so it becomes nice and soft. I'm going to take some Crisco and I'm going to put it down on my mat. I'm using a silicone mat here, but you can use, you can just use your counter if you want to. You can use your counter, you can use a piece of parchment paper, or I'm lucky to have nice silicone mats I can use. So then you can take a regular rolling pin or a bigger rolling pin, whatever you want to do, or a small one. I like these small ones, they work well, but any rolling pin will work, and roll your fondant out. Now this stuff we're going to roll a little bit thinner. I want this stuff to be more like about 1/8 of an inch, if you will, thick. So we're going to roll it fairly thin, and then you're going to take your cookie cutter. So I've got my little bunny. I'm going to match it up with my bunny cookie. So I'm going to use a cookie cutter to cut the fondant. So I'm going to go down, I'm going to press on the fondant, and I'm going to do the twist. Remember we talked about that. So do the twist to do that. So I have my little cutter there. Now I'm going to use some Caro syrup. Actually just white light corn syrup. Could be Caro syrup. This happens to be the Hy-Vee brand. Any of this clear corn syrup is going to be your glue. That's what's going to hold the fondant to the cookie. So you're going to take this syrup. I usually use a pastry brush. You can use a spatula, whatever works for you. And I just take and I just lightly put on some of this Caro syrup. Again, remember this is our glue. That's what we're going to use to make our cookie and the fondant stick together. So I'm going to take my little piece and I'm going to put it on my cookie. You can see that the cookie is a little bigger than the fondant. This one seems to be a little bit more bigger than some of them happen to be. But and all you're going to do is take your little rolling pin or your big rolling pin, whatever you have, and you're going to roll out the fondant a little bit, and it's going to stretch and cover that cookie perfectly, okay? So there's one. Let's do another one. I'll do a little pink, a different little pink bunny here. So just take my cookie cutter. Again, we're going to push, going to do the twist. We're going to just pick this all up now. And your fondant, when you pick it up, push it back into a ball. This is just like Play-Doh. It will dry out. Okay, take my cookie. I'm going to take, again, the light corn syrup, put on very little, and I'm going to put my little cookie and my fondant pieces together, and then I'm going to roll them out again. And all I do is a nice light roll is going to make it stick really well. All right, so I am going to do one more to show you how we can do two colors. So I have a tulip here. And so on the tulip, I'm going to use some purple. So I'm going to take a little bit of purple here. And again, a little bit of Crisco underneath it. This is going to keep it from sticking. If you don't have to do this every time you roll out, but maybe every other time or so, you need to add a little bit more Crisco just to make sure it doesn't stick. So I'm going to go ahead and roll this out. And I'm going to then use my cookie cutter. So let me get all my supplies here. Here is my cookie cutter. Here it is, right here. All right, so this is my tulip cookie cutter. So I'm just going to cut the flour part of the cookie in the fondant. So I'm just going to press down, and I'm going to do the twist. And I just have the top part of the cookie here. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to actually take my spatula and cut it off where it needs to be cut off. And then I'm going to take and put my Caro syrup on my cookie. And I will just put the flour part on, okay? So get the flour on, and then I'm going to just roll this out. So that looks beautiful. This is a great project. The kids can do this. I've taught this class to kindergartners, first graders, second grader, adults. It can get any degree you want to get. It can be very simple. It can be way, way more difficult. You can add some details to these that are absolutely stunning. So it's a project that you can decide how you want to do it. So now I'm going to take my green, just soften it up a little bit, and I'm going to roll that out. And now this time I'm just going to cut the leaves out of the cookie cutter. So press the leaves out and do that. Pick up the extras, put that back in the bag. And then I'm going to just cut the flour part off. So now I can take this. I already have my corn syrup down, and I can add this part to it. And then I'm just lightly roll it, because these cookies, you know, they're going to expand a little bit in the oven. But it works well because it gives you an opportunity then to roll your fondant out, and it's going to, you're going to be able to make it cover the cookie just perfectly. All right, so now I have a 2-color cookie done. Now, with this one, I'm going to take and you can make some icing. I like to use the icing, it's called shiny icing. And that recipe will also be, the cookie icing will be on the page that will have the fondant and the cookie recipe. The shiny icing has got a little bit of corn syrup in it. That little bit of corn syrup gives it a shine and also keeps it from getting brittle. So if you've used royal icing before, that gets real brittle when it dries, and it's kind of dull when it dries. I love this because it's beautiful, and also it doesn't get that hardness to it, so it's a little nicer. So I'm just going to take a decorating bag, and I'm going to outline my flower, and then I'm just going to kind of make a little bit of design on it. So there, so I've kind of done that with that. If you don't have decorating bags and decorating tips, they've used Ziploc bags. Just clip the little end off of it, put your icing in, and squeeze a little bit out. I believe the icing bags work a lot better, but you know what, you do what you have to do. If you need to cut a little Ziploc, then you do that. And then on the other part of it, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to outline it. This icing you can also actually use to do your entire cookie if you want to. So yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. So there, that cookie is done, and we can set that aside. That icing will firm up, so you're going to be able to put it in like a little cellophane bag for somebody, or you can put parchment paper and stack them on top of each other. This icing will firm up that it won't smash if you put them on top of each other, but you got to let it sit for a little bit to do that. Another thing I like to do as far as decorating is I like to take, I'll take this little bunny here, and I will take some sugar, and I will take in my light corn syrup again. I'm just going to take my little corn syrup. I'm going to take my spatula or pastry brush, and I'm just going to dab a little bit on there. I'm not covering the whole thing. I'm not making it perfect. I'm just randomly putting some corn syrup on there. Then I'm going to take my sugar, and I'm going to just put it on here. Oh, that was a little more than I needed. And it's just going to kind of cover a little bit. It's just going to give it a little bit of, shine to it, kind of pretty. And it, like I said, it doesn't have to cover the whole thing, just as much as you want to. I normally put it on a paper plate so I can then put it back into my my sugar container. So I have a different plate for each color sugar that you're going to do. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'll do one more cookie for you here. We're going to do a little chick. So we're going to take the yellow. Now when you color your icing, or your fondant, excuse me, try to wear some gloves of some sort, because otherwise your hands will turn color. So if you're going to make some blue fondant, you will have blue hands unless you take and put on something to protect your hands. If you don't have anything, I've used before, put it into a Ziploc bag and just smoosh it in there till the color absorbs and into the fondant and stuff. Another way is put a little bit of Crisco on your hands. It'll kind of seal your hands that it won't go on there as much either. So let's see, do we have a chick? Okay, so here's our little duck cookie cutter, little chick. And we're going to cut him out, do the twist. If you're making a lot of these, sometimes I will roll a big sheet of fondant out and I'll cut out 15, 20 of them. I do a lot of these for large parties. And so you don't have to do them one at a time. Again, make sure you put your glue on there. That's going to be your corn syrup. And then we're going to put that little piece right on there. We're going to roll it out. And then I'm going to right away put on some yellow sprinkles, So I'm just dabbing that on there. I'm going to get a paper plate, put my cookie on there, get my yellow sprinkles. You might have a lot of this stuff in your cabinet. You probably have sprinkles of all kinds there. And so that just does a little bit of extra for that. Now you can use, let's see, somewhere I have some eyes. There they are. So I've got a big box of eyes. So I'm gonna just take these little eyes. If the fondant is still fresh and wet, you sometimes can just take that little eye and push down in it and it's gonna stay there. If it doesn't, use a little dab of water. Now in this guy here, I just used a little bit of my icing and I just put an eye on him. And that's kind of what I'm gonna do with these bunnies here too. This one here, oh, that's not what I was gonna do. Let's see, we're just gonna put a couple eyes on this bunny right here. And actually, if you get anything on the cookie like that, you can take a wet paper towel and just wipe that off and it'll wipe right off for you. So that's that little bunny. And this little guy here, again, I'm just gonna take my my thing, put some little bit of caramel syrup on there. And just give it a little bit of sugar. Okay, the last thing I'm going to show you how to do is how to marble your fondant. This here cookie here, I've marbled 2 colors together and it makes for like a real pretty Easter egg mix. It makes really pretty for lots of different things. I've got my egg here, I've got my egg cookie. I'm going to take 2 colors and I think I'll take blue and some pink. You need to take 2 colors that when they blend together will make another color, not, not brown or black. So these 2 colors, when they're mixed together, are gonna make a purple. Okay, so that way I'm gonna have 3 colors in my thing. So you can put together like yellow and orange, yellow and pink. I've used in this one purple and pink. So I've got my stuff. You don't want to mix it too much because when you roll it out, it's going to mix again. Always have a little thing because you need to wipe that Crisco off your hands. It's going to, when I roll it out, it's going to mix a little bit more. So if you over mix it, and sometimes the back of it might look prettier than the front of it. In this case here, that's what happened. So it's going to mix a little bit more as you roll it together. So don't over mix it. If it's not mixed enough, you can pick it up, roll it up, and do it again. So we're going to cut our little cookie. And there we have kind of a nice robin's looking egg. Put on our clear, light colored syrup, corn syrup. And then you're going to put this on here. And again, roll it out. I make these cookies for so many occasions. I make them at Christmas. I make them for graduation parties, birthday parties. I use them a lot of times for party favors. If I'm doing a shower for somebody, I might make little Winnie the Pooh cookies, put them in a little bag, and little thank you on the card to on the tag to give to people when they leave the shower. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you'll take time to make these. They'll make somebody very happy to have some beautiful cookies like this, and also it'll be entertainment for any age kids to help in. And I wish you all well. Thank you.